Keto pork rinds. If you want to lose weight, you want to keep your carbs down, try these. We're running a little bit late uh, due to feeding our faces, and I had to take a shower. So here we are once again. What was that?
I don't know.
Discussing chapter was 9. And as you see by the title, what was the title, baby? What were you typing?
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8, sorry.
Becoming flexible and becoming communicators.
Yeah. So here we are. Come on, baby.
All right. What?
Let's go.
You start.
I'll start. I don't know how to start. You start everything. So let's go.
I do start everything, which is why you should start this time.
Yep, I'll start next week. Or the week after.
All right. So anyway, this chapter was on becoming flexible and becoming communicators. Apparently, 2 areas that Mr. Jermaine here feels he has nailed down to a T. He needs no improvement whatsoever.
That's so untrue, but whatever.
Exactly what you said.
Nope, it's not what I said.
It definitely is what he said. Like, he doesn't need any improvement.
Anyway.
So it talks about becoming flexible, and the flexibility is talking about like its ability to adapt to change.
Go.
In a marriage.
What?
Like, that's not loud.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The ability to adapt to change, and to make adjustments within your marriage. So I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, because change is oftentimes not comfortable. It can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And sometimes if you think that you don't have anything that you need to change, it makes it more difficult for you to be someone that's flexible. So he gave an acronym called DARE, and it stands for Discoveries, Awakenings, Revelations, and Enlightenments. And he talks about the different things you dare to find out can make your transition into marriage. I'm sorry, I lost my page. The different things that you dare to find out can make your transition into marriage. What does he say? How does he quote this? Difficult. So the important thing to remember is to have your own dare list. It's not about who wins the stalemate, but who is willing to operate out of a sense of mutual benefit for the good relationship. And I think that's a problem with a lot of the relationships. He actually talks about marriages, and the problem that a majority of the problem is that people are always trying to win.
Yeah,
they're always trying to win, whether it's a conversation, when they're communicating with regard, or if it's regard to compromising. Someone's always trying to win, and that shouldn't be the goal. That shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to be relational as opposed to winning. And so he talks about this couple who were they're older couple. They're married. They were previously married, and how they operated in their previous marriage. They brought to this marriage, and as a result of that, struggled with some issues. Particularly, one was the guy didn't want the wife working because he said that he's supposed to provide for her. She said she liked working, she enjoyed working. His argument was like, no, but when she worked before in the past, it's because she needed to work. She doesn't need to work now. So he was failing to understand, and he was so rigid in tradition that he didn't understand that his wife actually wanted to work because she enjoyed her job. Like, that's what she enjoyed doing, and she enjoyed doing it.
Which goes back to the word provide that we addressed many moons ago. People don't know or don't completely understand when you say provide, what provide means. uh, and from how the guy was acting was like he was trying to provide in a
I
financial
can't eat
way,
that.
and what
It's
she
for
needed
y'all.
provided was a peace of
Yes.
mind
Hmm.
in support of what she wanted to do as far as her work, and so he wasn't actually providing at that point. So,
Right.
in my opinion,
It talks about one of the key points of understanding the key to understanding marriage is to know that it is a constantly a learning process. Um, if it's going to be a constant learning process, I don't under no one should feel like they've ever gotten to the point where they perfected anything, because if you're constantly learning and people are constantly changing and people are constantly adapting, that's all. It's like impossible. It's impossible to get to the point where there's no room for improvement. Like there's always room for improvement. There's always going to continuously be room for improvement within a marriage. Um, and when people stop understanding that, that's what leads to them becoming more inflexible, and what leads to a host of issues. Uh, I know that because I've been through that before. Um, and is almost I don't want to say when you get complacent, but that's part of it too. But the I guess because part of the complacency is you feeling like you don't need to do anything in addition to learning more. You don't need to continue to learn your partner. You don't need to continue to learn in the marriage. You don't need to continue to perfect your skills. You don't need to continue to do anything, and so that leads to issues. You know anything?
no.
Regards to flexibility. So he gave 5 things with regards to 5 skills that people could practice, which regards to flexibility. One was understand you can make mistakes. Um, a lot of people are put in the position, whether knowingly or unknowingly, to feel as though they have to be perfect throughout their entire marriage. That's with regards to raising the kids, um, helping to resolve issues, um, all of that. Some
I
people just they feel like that. A person makes them feel like, okay, well, they have to be perfect in everything they do.
I don't know. Like you said that this is kind of it's to what you're saying, but you said that people are made to feel like that through their spouses or
Hmm.
their partners.
Yeah,
That's interesting because I don't understand how somebody would ever feel like though they have to be perfect because nobody is perfect. So why would how can somebody one make somebody feel like that and when they're not perfect themselves? That's kind of weird to me, and I don't see how people would allow that.
which mean allow it.
Allow somebody to make let them feel like they have to be perfect because that's sort of self-explanatory. You have to know that you're going to make mistakes in life, and you're going to make mistakes in a relationship, in a marriage. Now, you know, I don't consider cheating or something like that a mistake, but so I don't understand how why people would feel as though they have to be perfect. So
Because sometimes they partner have a false ideal of them. That makes people feel like they have to be perfect or have to operate in a certain manner all the time. Because if the minute they don't, then that's going to cause an issue. That's why I said people can unintentionally make someone feel like they need or that they have to be perfect in everything they do. When a partner doesn't want to give up their spouse constructive criticism, and say, well, I think you can do this and that, and act like, oh, well, there's nothing, I don't have any issue with anything you do ever, whatever, blah, 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 then that can put a person where it makes them feel like they have to be perfect all the time.
say that again.
I'm saying when a partner doesn't even want to give their spouse even any type of constructive criticism or anything, that can put them on, making them feel like they have to be perfect.
How if you ain't got nothing to say? How you gonna give somebody constructive
Because there's always
criticism?
something to say. That's the thing. There's always something that a person can improve on.
How,
There's nothing that person never can improve on anything.
well, if it may be, then it may be something that they want to improve on themselves. But if your partner's telling you that they don't have anything that they need you to do, then how do you want them to? You want them to make up something to say that they got an issue with?
No, I didn't say that. but I'm saying I think that's pretty much impossible because a lot of times they do have issues with different things that they just don't bring up.
Okay.
But so that's that understand you can make mistakes. Number two is recognizing that your spouse is not perfect. Um, and for some people that's even hard to do because uh, they don't expect their spouse to make mistakes. And again, mistakes that he's referring to in this book, and the ones that I'm talking about specifically, I don't know how Jermaine defines it, but I don't think being disrespectful and rude and abusive and emotionally abusive or physically abusive or cheating on your spouse. I don't think they're talking about those type of mistakes. Matter of fact, I know they're not talking about those type of mistakes. But they're talking about the mistakes that people make in everyday life, like the mistake of I don't know,
Forgetting to pay a bill or something like that.
well that and maybe forgetting to be attentive to their spouse or not being as attentive to their spouse, or maybe even not knowing their spouse's love language and loving their spouse in the way that the spouse needs to be loved. Those things are all a lot of times they're not intentional. They're unintentional. They're mistakes. They're things that can be corrected. And so you have to give your spouse some type of grace with that. And then especially if you and your spouse do things totally different, then you have to remember that they're not gonna if you both agree to do something a certain way, they may not be able to implement that in the way that you want all the time, every time, because it's just not something they're used to. So you have to recognize your spouse is not perfect. That's number two. Number three is have a positive outlook on marriage issues. Um, and he talks about looking at issues positively before they even begin, um, which is interesting because I don't think a lot of people look at possible bumps and roads and issues in the road that they can encounter when they get married. They sometimes a lot of people wait till it happens. So we're very proactive. I mean, no, I'm sorry, very reactive when it comes to potential issues in marriages and relationships because we talked about that in the show how people don't even have certain conversations that they should probably have when they're even in the dating stages. Like, and they just these conversations never come up, and people don't expect them or they don't think about them as potential issues later on. And then when they become an issue, then you have this whole deal that issue that you have to deal with. And it could, for some, it could be a make it or break it issue. So he says that, you have to look at those issues, even those future ones, before they even become an issue. You have to kind of look at them positively.
And that also starts, and I'm just learning this. Well, most people have a negative connotation of marriage anyway. So if you could get that before you actually get married, as you transition into the marriage, that made that thought process of having more of a positive issues on the positive feedback or outlook on the issues in a marriage, that would help out a lot. It would be a lot easier if you could start that process before you actually get married. Because again, society and the media, first thing they want to throw out is the divorce rate. So that starts off, puts you behind the eight ball, in my opinion, going into the marriage anyway. If you already thinking, or if that's already implemented in your head that the divorce rate is high, because you're going to be trying to do everything not to quote unquote, I'm not going to say everybody, but do everything perfectly, if that makes any sense, which goes back to understanding that people are not perfect. So,
So then number four was to be patient. He talks about flexibility requiring time. Um, Things will not always happen as fast or as simply as you want them to. Some people want um, their adjustment to married life, uh, to the adjustment to go smoothly. They want the adjustment to happen quickly, with the least amount of bumps possible. But that's not always the case. It may take quite a bit of time for things to settle into a routine or to become one that you can say you like we talked about last week how he said kind of you build your own expectations, like instead of coming into the to a marriage or relationship with your each individual expectations and expecting them to be to be adhered to, that you should build your own expectations within your marriage relationship. And sometimes that takes time to build those expectations. Sometimes it takes time. I don't care how well a person think they know each other. But once you get married, and especially if you haven't cohabitated before marriage, and even sometimes when people start getting rid of their personal ambassador, or they stop engaging in impression management, there are even things then that you have to be patient with learning, and be patient with adjusting to. So it's always uh, you have to be patient with everything, because you're going to come up with there's going to be things that come up and things that happen, and if you can't patiently deal with them, uh, that leads to frustration and even trying to resolve them. And then let's see, I think he gave 6 of those things to become more flexible. Yeah, number 5 was be willing to compromise. So we've talked a lot about that before. So the willingness to compromise. And it was something I circled. He said legitimate compromise is about both parties being heard and respected. So sometimes people think that they are compromising when they're not really compromising at all. It's not really a compromise. So again, legitimate compromise is about both parties being heard and respected. And then number 6 is relax. Don't get caught up in your schedules, your ideas, your plans, that you can't include your spouse in the process. And one of the ways we can become inflexible is when we think that our plans aren't happening like we want them to. So again, it's just about that ability to recognize that even if you have a set plan with how you think things should go, it may not fall in line like that, and that you need to relax, because if you can't relax, then it's going to be create another issue. Get the house, get all the clutter out, and I had developed a schedule and said we're gonna do these rooms on these days, and then my kids, my daughters, the oldest daughters, had to move everything out their room to get the carpet replaced. And we thought it was going to happen one day, and it didn't happen. And then it ended up being multiple weeks, when we thought that it was going to only take a couple of weeks or 1 week for them to get this carpet done. So in that process, because they had all their stuff in their room piled up in what we call the wedding room and in the living room and everything, it was like very difficult, impossible basically to be on schedule and get the rooms completed, um, like I had planned to do. So it ended up making me kind of really anxious, because I don't like a lot of clutter, and frustrated, and actually kind of ruined my mood for a while. And that's I think that's one of the things about relaxing, learning how to relax and understand that there's things are not going to always go your way. So I need to practice that more, because I wasn't able to do that. That was hard. What made me feel better though was that the day when I was talking about that to my counselor, I came upstairs, and I don't know if my daughter had heard me or not, but she had one room completely cleared out and completely redone, and it looked really, really nice, and I was super happy about that. So that caused me to relax. So then he talks about being communicators. And I wrote this in kind of bold, where it said communication equals understanding, not win or lose. And understanding is the goal with regards to communication. He says mature couples recognize that they did not get married to be right. They married so they can be relational. So again, the goal is understanding when you're communicating, and understanding that each of you are individuals. Y'all gonna have your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own ideas about stuff, and that's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that has nothing to do with it really doesn't have whole lot to do with compatibility. And what I mean by that is that unless you have some type of uh, he's a atheist and I'm a Christian type issue going on as far as beliefs, Most other things can be worked around. You can even work around how you discipline kids and everything by compromising with each other if that's something that you two are totally opposites about. So even in that regard, there can be a compromise. Uh, so again, the key is not being able to win or have every argument go your way and all this, but it is to the goal is just to understand. You just don't agree with it. Like sometimes you can say something and you don't agree with it, but you can communicate clearly and understand how you just don't agree with it. Like you keep saying I don't understand something when I'm capable of understanding. Like I know what you're talking about, but I just don't agree with what you're saying. And so sometimes that's hard for him to kind of to get, I guess, because he'll continue to say I don't understand something when I hate when people do that to me. It's really frustrating actually. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, with me, as far as becoming a better communicator, it was something that he said that really stood out to me. It's not whether a couple will say, it says whether a couple will become closer or move further apart. That basically depends on not only is what is being said, but also what is not being said, and that's a big thing because you could, of course, there's a way that you could speak to somebody, a tone, and all of that, and words can be harsh. But and I think we spoke on this before. It's the things that's not being said because if you can't if you don't communicate uh, things that may bother you or may not bother you, or things that's wrong that you feel is wrong, then you hold that in, and when you hold that in, it comes out at the wrong time, uh, and it can surprise people, and when they thinking everything was this way or that way, and it comes out at a time when you're not expecting, and it can make you feel away. It can cause bigger problems, bigger issues. So the things that are not being said, it's is just as important as how you speak and the things that you do say to your partner, because that can be just as detrimental. And that was one of the biggest things in that, in just the being the communicator part for me in communication, because a lot of times again we don't say things and we should. So
He talks about communication is a skill of understanding how to talk to others, how to talk to your spouse. It's not necessarily all the time what you say, but how you say it. He gave a good example of this couple that came in, and it just shows how they kind of communication kind of just tanked. Um, and it all started from I don't know who if the egg came before the chicken or chicken came before the egg in this one, but basically what happened was that the wife was trying to talk to the husband. Um, she was used to them talking about everything. The husband got to the point where he's like, no, when I come home from work, I want to decompress. And then all she's talking about is what needs to be done around the house. And he doesn't want to hear it and blah, 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 blah. What happened was that her perception was that he didn't really like they were not connecting anymore because he didn't want to hear her communicating or talking to him about things because he needed to decompress because of how he was reacting to her talking to him. She felt like though she could only get a response from him if she was telling him to do stuff, because then now they arguing and they fighting, and so it was interesting how the author talks about how because they had these faulty perceptions to begin with, like her whole thing was like he doesn't want to talk because we're not connected, when actually it was no, he needs to decompress. And then his whole thing was like, all she does is argue with me, when no, what she was really trying to do was just get your attention. But because of how they were both reacting to each other, it ended up making their perceptions become a reality. So how she felt became a reality, how he felt became a reality, because they started playing into how each other felt without even knowing it. So that's something I don't think a lot of people think about. When you talk about communication, like a person can feel a way, um, and if it's not communicated clearly, or if a person doesn't pick up on it clearly why they're feeling a certain way, and then they just react to it, then it can cause that person's feelings to be felt like it's validated. Like, well, see, that's why I feel that way, because you actually do this when I talk to you. So it's just something that we need to be as aware of it as we should be.
Yeah, now I was sitting there thinking, as you said something that made me kind of change, sway my thoughts on that whole interaction. It definitely was a breakdown in communication, and it's things like that that seem so simple that becomes more difficult when the communication is not there. Um, if I'm putting myself in his shoes, I think that. And I don't know. If I'm putting myself, let me stay right there. If I put myself in his shoes, I could potentially understand what he means. He needs to decompress, but also you have to understand, like, depending on what his wife was doing, like if she's working at home and this, that, and the third. But those are certain duties that have to be done uh, around the house anyway, because as it also said, when he wants sex and when he want to eat, he don't have a problem talking then. So those things with the communication factor, those things should have been discussed actually prior to marriage or and moving in together and all that other stuff. Because if you know what's expected of you from the beginning, then you know from his perspective, I know that's expected of me, and that's what I have to do. Then it wouldn't have been a bigger issue. It wouldn't have been as big of an issue. Also, if they would have communicated like that, and she says she expect yada yada this and yada yada that, and then he voiced how he likes to decompress, or when he comes home from work, sometimes he want to chill and do that. If that would have been discussed early on as well, then I don't think that issue would have been as big where they had to go sit down and talk to somebody about that. So but the basis of that is the lack of communication again. So
Yeah, and so that's what that's what the author was talking about too. He said that the fact that the guy needs to get his head together and decompress from a long day of work is not a bad thing. It just needs to be communicated to his wife in a way that she feels, in a way so that she doesn't feel that she's not important to him. And then he was saying
that's what I
it's
was gonna say too.
also, it's not a problem for the wife to want to connect with her husband after not seeing him all day, but her success will be how she goes about communicating that desire and expressing that feeling to Nigel. So they were both just way off in how they were communicating with each other.
So then I'll ask you, how is her telling him she needs this, that, and the third done, and go do this and go do that, is a way of her connecting with him. I would I don't
She wasn't, no, that would think that was her way of trying to get him up and active and interacting with her, as opposed to maybe just sitting there and watching TV. Because that's the only time she could get a response out of him.
Oh, okay.
And it's crazy because sometimes we'll be more delicate in how we communicate with our kids, with our friends, with our coworkers, with everybody else but our spouse. Like, which is crazy. Like, there's times where I don't understand why people find it hard to say, hey, I just need a minute. There's been times where I've told the kids that because I didn't want them to feel like I was just blowing them off. But I would have to say, like, okay, guys, give me 10 minutes. I need 10 minutes just be, and then I'll ask you, I'll see what y'all need or what y'all want. Just give me some breathing space real quick. And sometimes if you should be able to communicate that to your spouse too. Is he should have been able to, when he came home from work, instead of just ignoring her, he should have been able to say, hey honey, I'm home from work, give me like 20 minutes, to decompress, and then we'll sit down, we can talk and blah 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 blah. And then her thing could have been, instead of picking arguments with him to get him to react to her, could have been to tell him like, hey, that's the only time I feel like I have with you is when we communicate, because you're at work all day. So if when you come home from work, if we're not, sitting and talking to each other about how our day went, that makes me feel away. And then that would have been something that they could have resolved. So they also talk about that when you communicate, he said it can come to a complete stop when the wrong thing is mentioned. Or he says someone who's trying to have a meaningful conversation can have everything go south quickly if someone gets the wrong idea about what is being expressed. And we've had that happen to us a lot,
Yeah,
actually. Um,
absolutely.
where it's like I'm saying something, I don't mean it in the way that it was taken, and all of a sudden it went from us trying to everything just going to the trash
Yep.
after that.
And I don't want to say that's natural, but I'm pretty sure that that happens to a lot of couples and a lot of people. So goes back, I guess, to some of those steps that was discussed earlier on, earlier on, um, that has to be implemented.
Right. And then he talks about like talking is essential, but also how listening is crucial. And if anybody who's taken any type of workshop on communication, or in school, if you had to do any course on communication, they talk about effective listening. Well, a part of effective communicating entails it actually a huge part of that is with regards to listening, because it is so many things that can happen in the listening phase of communication that can throw everything off. From person feeling like they're not being heard, from a person hearing something wrong, from a person to a person um only listening to respond. All those things can make an effort to your effort to communicate something to someone tank really quick.
So I want to address that listening to to listen to respond thing. It's something that she had said to me, and in the midst of her saying it, I caught myself doing it, and that's I think that's the biggest key in all of that when it comes to listening. I think that's the most important thing, to listen, not to just respond. Because what happens is, and well, at least with me, once I have my opinion on X, while you're trying to tell me Y is coming up next, da 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 da, you're getting ready to say, okay, I understand X is here, but then Y, and before you even tell me when Y is coming, then I turn around and be like, no, but X is blah blah blah. So I'm waiting to respond without, no matter what you're getting ready to say, my response is already getting ready to come down the pipeline. So when you said that to me, that was I caught myself like, you know what, you right. And at the moment when you said it, you said, would you stop listening to me to respond? And even with you saying that, I was getting ready to respond how I was going to respond, because I didn't care what was coming next.
Right.
So it was funny in that moment. I was like, because I think I told you, I was like, yep, that's exactly what I just did.
Right.
Right. So and I maybe that's a human nature or a human thing. I don't know, but it's something that's something that I definitely took heed to and going to try to work on. And it's not just with her; it's just in general, because that's a tool that could be used all throughout life and in different scenarios, not only in your marriage.
Right. And it is called active listening. Yep. JK, because and I don't like, again, people find that very difficult to do. I think because nowadays we are so, our minds are racing all the time. And because it's racing so much, it's so easy to forget what you want to say in response to a person. So your thing is, okay, let me listen to respond, and you holding that in your head instead of hearing what the rest of they have to say. It's about, which is dangerous, because I even remember, even actually was one time, even after I said that to Jermaine, that I was saying something, and then the other thing he talks about is interrupting your partner, right? You
Yeah,
shouldn't be
I'm
cutting your
bad for
partner
that.
off.
I'm
But I was saying
terrible for
something to
that.
Jermaine, and before I got a chance to follow it up with an or if blah 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 blah, he just immediately just went on a rampage about it. I'm like, you didn't even let me finish. I was getting ready to say, or if he is blah blah blah, then this and that. But you didn't even give me a chance to finish that. And so that's all part of listening. Like, if you don't do that, I mean, if you do things like that, then you can't say that you're a good listener, because you're not always a good listener. And we don't look at listening that in depth. We don't think about it that. But and then the other thing that I thought about was like, part of if you work in any type of, mainly a lot of corporate settings, but a lot of times if you work in anything, and someone says something to you, or a person responds to you, or they send you an email, right? Which is now how people communicate. But say someone sends you an email, they're expecting a response from you, right? And then sometimes even in that response, you're expecting a follow up, or they're expecting a follow up. One of the things I always make sure I do at my job is that if someone asks me a question about something, I'll respond to it, right? But then I'll follow up with them again and say, hey, I wanted to circle back around to you about this. Was this ever resolved? Right? That's part of active listening. I mean, yes, it's through email communication, but it's part of being a effective communication. But we don't do that a lot when we're talking to our friends, when we're talking to our partners. Sometimes they'll say something, and we'll respond, or our response be short, or we won't even follow up with it. But that's all a part of being an active listener. And not even just that, but active listening shows that you're concerned too, or that you care about what the person is saying to you, or what they've communicated to you. Yeah, trust. Yes, and trust but verify. Yes, exactly. He talks about how effective communication begins with the individual. Uh, Good communication is focused on who you are as an individual and what kind of effort you make to effectively communicate through the challenges and perspectives that you bring to the table. So it does begin with us as individuals. We have to be willing to say, okay, we're not always right. Okay, our perspectives are not the end all, and we're not king and queen of all perspectives and ideas. Um, he also talks about how important it is to recognize that communication is gender specific.
And this is so
This was
true.
really interesting. So he said it's gender specific, meaning that men and women have somewhat different forms, different ways of communicating. Generally, men typically start a conversation when they see an inherent need. To a man, when there's something that needs to be talked about, that is usually when you hear from him. Um, when it seems like men aren't talking, or they seem to be comatose in front of the television, it's not that they don't want to talk. The issue may be that when the basketball game is on and his favorite team is down in the championship series, in his world, there may not be much to say if it's not about the championships. Then he says, generally, women, on the other hand, talk more because talking is a way of connection. And that is so true.
Yeah.
A woman sees communication as a way to be close. A woman will not only talk about the game that's on, but will talk about the color of the coach's tie, why there's a need for a 3-point line, why she thinks there's an unfair advantage to the taller people on the court, and she will wonder why grown men need cheerleaders on the sideline. Your wife's conversation really has nothing to do with the game, much to your disappointment, but it has everything to do with connecting with you. A woman typically wants to share the things in her life with you, and she automatically assumes that because you love her, you want to do the same. So that's a huge difference, and I do that all the time when I'm watching games. Like, why they got this rule? I'll change that rule because I don't like that rule. That rule needs to be different. I don't understand why they don't let people do this in football, and why.
So, what I will say about that, what I don't think that I do agree with women uh, use conversations to connect more than men do. For the most part, we as men, like they said, like we're going to talk about immediate things that's an issue or bothering us, or may had happened or something like that. And I wonder what that's about though. Is that because of the emotional, how emotional women, the makeup of women and the makeup of men are different, or how did that even
Something before, and I can't remember what it was. I have to go back and look. But it was talking about how, because of how the nature of women, like how they try to relate on all these different aspects within a relationship or a marriage, right? So a woman, she's going to try to relate to you through communicating, through this, through this, through this, through this, where a man, for some reason, don't look at all those different aspects as part of connecting. Like those things are not important to them. I don't know the reason and the rationale behind that, but it'd be interesting to kind of try to figure out. But I don't know if it's necessarily biology, to be honest, more so than it is social learning and socialization. How even little boys are socialized differently than females. So I think a lot of that comes from that, from school, from how your parents raise you, everything else with regards to what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman in relational type things.
Maybe it comes from I don't know. It could come from broken homes too, maybe, because if you have a husband and wife that's effectively doing everything like communicating and everything else, then the children would see that, and then it would, I guess it would be imprinted,
Right.
uh, and in their life as they go old on and start getting into their own relationships and marriages and stuff like that. So I would maybe attribute a little bit to that, to broken homes, because not enough young kids are seeing healthy relationships and marriages as well.
Yeah, it could be
So
that. And yeah, so I think a huge part of that is socialization. And then you get where you had these things where again with the saying with the women, they supposed to be seen and not heard and everything else, which probably led a lot of women once they got out of that, once the mindset with regards to things like that start changing, then maybe that led a lot more women to feel like connecting through communication was key because they hadn't gotten a chance to do that before. I don't know. Um, let's see. Well, I'm starting to get just to get to know you, and we're on the phone. We're talking on the phone. I'll even make notes after I get off the phone. Most women love that you remember small things about their day on down the line. Like if she had an issue at work that was minor, and you can ask her if she got the problem solved on down. That's exactly that's that type of follow up that I'm talking about. Like if a woman, I don't know. I guess some men don't think about this, but if a woman feels like communication, if a woman feels that communication is her connection to a person, right? Then when that person doesn't follow up with them, it could tend to make them feel like they're not connected or that the person doesn't care. So like the fact that you even do that, I would think would make a woman feel like, oh, he really cares or he's really listening to me because he asked about that. But a lot of people don't think about that.
yeah, but the one time if that ain't who you are, in general, then you shouldn't start that habit either. Because if that ain't something that you now, it goes back to that personal ambassador thing as well. Because if you're
Hmm.
doing that because you understand that that's what they like, and this, that, and the third, or a lot of women like that. If that ain't like imprinted in your DNA, and that's something that you can't continue on doing it. Yeah, it's great starting off to make her believe that, or see that, hey, I'm this type of guy. But then later on down the line, if you don't continue that, that's going to cause more issues.
Yeah, it definitely, or it definitely have to be something that you're intentional about practicing all the time.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a skill that has to be developed. If a person's not used to doing that, which a lot of us just not. I mean, we can try to sugarcoat it all we want to, but sometimes we're so self-absorbed with ourselves that we just don't do that. We don't do that with people that we, even with our parents or even with our sisters or even with our closest friends. So it's definitely hard to do it with someone that you're in a relationship with or you just met or someone that even yet you're married to, because if you're not just used to doing that all the time, then you're not going to do that. It's not going to be something that comes naturally, but it is a skill that needs to be practiced because people do feel like you care about them if you can demonstrate that, hey, I remember that you said this. How did that turn out? I remember that you said this happened. What happened with that? I remember that you said blah 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 this. And some people, like I said, some people are natural at that. Others aren't. In the military, I was paid to listen to people all day, every day, and I'm really good at listening to people. That's interesting that you said in the military. I wonder what the statistics are with regards to men in the military that do that, because that must be
They're
something
very
that
they're very disciplined. So military is all about discipline as well. So you have to be attentive. I mean, you have to be attentive to damn near that's it's basically a life or death situation. So you got to be very attentive, and then you have to listen and be able to follow instructions and everything else. So I would think that type of skill that would come from that, and you will acquire that skill being in the military like that. Because if you don't, it could cost you your life.
Yeah, that's true. But then I also think about now that you mention that, I'm thinking about military people that I've talked to in the past, and you're right, because I don't know what I can't remember what their role was in the military, but I do remember them being the people that would sometimes ask me about things that I forgot I had even mentioned to them, and I'd be like, "How you know about that?" They're like, "Because you told me blah 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 day that this and this happened." I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, but I didn't think you remember that." And they was like, "Yeah, how did it turn out?" Or yeah, what's the deal with that? Or so, did your daughter ever get that? I mean, it'd be stuff about my daughter. Did she ever get that straightened out? And I'm like, you remember that? So you're right. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing with most military people. I'm not sure. That's crazy that you bring that up. I never even thought about it from that perspective. But it's definitely a skill that people need to practice on. So he gives us oh, okay, your career field involved a lot of interviews and interrogation. That makes sense too. That does. Especially when you have to interview and interrogate people, because even as an attorney, one of the things that was really important, like, and this is how you show how you can balance that, because even when you had someone on the stand, or like the opposing party has someone on the stand, they're asking a question, I had to listen. I had to be write down things that I needed to respond to. So it was funny because I had to listen to respond and actively listen to. So you have to do both in those situations, because you have to be able to pick up on those things like, okay, they said this, I need to go back and ask them about this. They said this, I need to go back and ask them. But then you also have to pay attention and listen intently to everything that they're saying in that, so that you can make sure, for one, you don't want to look stupid if you get up there and try to interrogate somebody and they didn't say something and you didn't got it all wrong because you weren't listening. But then you have to be able to make sure you can go back and piece that story together that they gave you. So I can see how interviewing and interrogating people will help develop that skill. He came up with like 6, I think, skills that people can work on to communicate effectively. One of them was take time to listen carefully. Um, he was saying, like, don't have conversations just to get it out the way, but to actually be intent about listening to the conversation. I hate when
I would add to that too, intent with listening to the conversation, and I don't understand why. Maybe he did say, and I looked over it. Intent to listening to the conversation, as well as trying to come up with a solution or a compromise for it, because you can be intent listening to the conversation and still get hear and be listening and hearing what they're saying. And if it's not some type of compromise or resolution, then what is the purpose, kind of?
Well, then he addresses that too, though.
Oh, okay.
So he talks about so taking time to listen carefully, right? And part of listening carefully too is, I don't know why people think that it's okay for them to be looking at their phone, to be watching TV and everything else, and talking to someone. That is an automatic to anyone, for them to think like you're not really paying attention to me.
Yeah, my aunt said that too.
I really, and it's disrespectful too. It's disrespectful unless the person says, "I apologize." It's one thing if you're in the middle of doing something, right? And somebody comes talking, you like, okay, I keep talking. I need to finish this up, but I hear you. Some people can multitask like that. At times, I can be in 2 meetings at one time and hear what the other party is saying and reply to it and hear. But that doesn't mean, even though I'm hearing it, doesn't mean that I'm still listening intently, right? So you don't want to always do that. I can see where there's circumstances where you would have to do that, but to be on your phone while someone is talking to you, it is almost impossible to be listening intently to them, because at some point you're going to miss something. You're going to miss something that they said, and it could just be that thing that they really wanted you to catch and you didn't catch it because you were not paying attention like that. Um, that's just how our brain works. It's rude. It's rude to do that when the people when someone it makes you seem disengaged and uninterested. And I don't know why you would want any person who is that you love to feel that way when they're talking to you. I don't care what they're talking to you about, but you should always want them to think that you are interested in what they're saying. So you could be the most boring thing in the world. Like, I don't want to hear about this, but you should always want them to feel as though you do want to hear about it. Um, that's why I don't like a TV or phone in my bedroom, because where I'm going to have my most serious conversations at. That's true, and that's why people get upset when they take someone out on a date, right? And the person's on their phone the whole time. So this is the thing: if you can think that it's bad to be on your phone while you're out there on a date, right? Why person? Why do you think it's okay to be on the phone when your spouse is trying to talk to you?
All of that goes back again to getting complacent. And the thing that I always tell people, or the thing that I started believing, let me say it that way, is that and I'm guilty of this a lot. So I do believe it, but I'm guilty of it. When you think about when you first meet the individual and you guys start dating, it's the most wonderful experience, and you can't wait to see the person the next day, and next day, and the next day, and then all of a sudden that start wearing off a little bit, right? And you become less attentive to that person. But if you put in your mind that if the moment you stop giving that person that attention, if that person goes out and start dating somebody else, they're gonna give them that same type of attention that you gave them and attentiveness that you gave them. So basically, what's not new to you anymore is new to the next person, and that to the extent that I'm guilty of that, but I still have that in my mind, understanding that, like, if I stop doing whatever it is that attracted her to me, she can easily go out here and get somebody else that's going to give her all that attention and everything else that she needs. So you have to be intentional about continuously trying to do the same things that made you fall in love and that person fall in love with you in the beginning. And it's a lot easier said than done, but that's the reality of it. Because if you break up with the person that you with, you're going to go out here to a new person and be Mr. Perfect for them. So why not try to put that effort into trying to stay Mrs. or Mrs. Perfect for your spouse?
Right. And there used to be a time when people, when they ate dinner together at the table, which most people don't, or even any meal at the table together. That's funny, because I remember growing up and us eating, we actually ate at tables and stuff. I don't understand where that's gone or how that got changed. But like, that's why people used to say, like, for people, once as we became more modernized and technology focused, parents are saying, okay, you can't have your electronics at the table. You can't have your phone at the table, because that was supposed to be a time where everybody could communicate and focus and listen intently to what each other was saying. Now you got people that have a date night and they on their phone. Like, how you having a date night and supposed to be nurturing your relationship and y'all both on your phones? That makes no sense at all. I dated a person one time that was as crazy as this dude was. And he may have had other alternatives for it. I don't know. I think it just bugged him. Because I noticed that he did that with other people too. But like, his whole thing was like, no, when we go out to eat dinner or something, don't touch we're not touching the phone. Like, we not doing anything with the phones. Like, put the phones down. It's our time to talk to each other. Blah blah blah. Communicate with each other. We're not talking. We're not touching these phones. And it makes sense, because then you're I want to say forced to talk, but it helps with that whole nurturing your relationship thing.
Well, you're definitely forced to talk to somebody, and if you can't, and look, we're guilty of that too. She's bad at it. I'm probably
He does
worse.
way worse than I do.
So
sometimes I have my phone like, I won't pick up my phone because I'll pick up my phone because he the one on his phone first.
I just said that I'm worse. I just said that I'm worse than it. But the whole thing about it is, right, if you can't sit across from someone that you're married to or dating or whatever the case may be and have a conversation with them, then I don't know what would you be able to talk to, talk about when you're at home or when you're out and about. That's just me. And again, I understand that, the schedules, the work schedules and life can interfere with you all having productive and conversations and connect conversations that keep you connected or whatever, and that is the moment. But I think if you can't, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna do that. Next time we go out, I'm gonna leave my phone in the car. You can't leave yours because of the kids, right? One of us gotta have a phone. And I'm gonna do that because that is a good thing. That's how you do stay connected, which I don't think that we necessarily lack a connection thing, because one day we just sat in here about a week ago and we talked for a whole work hour. Like, I mean, her whole work hour shift, she's supposed to have been working. We was just sitting here talking. We don't lack that. So I could go out and I can sit across from her and have a conversation, because we'll start talking about bees flying outside or anything, and it'll turn into something else. So that's something where I think one of our best qualities as a married couple. But to the point, how we got there, when you ask that, it's just because it's the same like the dating apps. Everything has went internet wise. Yeah. You're not nothing if you're not on the internet. Right. Everything, the news, it's so much you can do on the internet, and that consumes so much part of everybody's lives, including mine. I'm guilty of that as well. So it's something that I may actually have to try one day.
Yeah.
Because and a lot of people feel naked without their phone. Like when I left the other day and came back, I came back because that was something else. It was one day I left and I had left my phone, and it just felt like I had left a part of my life, and I felt that it just felt weird. It just felt weird.
Yeah. I work on his paid to answer, so when I'm on date and I'm set that call, will I her know? Let her okay beforehand what's going on. Other than that, I don't touch them. Yeah, I just don't understand where people thought that it's strange. And then I've seen people do it when they're at family events. Like, they don't know, why are you on your phone? Like, I'm confused. Like, then y'all be hollering about when the family member died. Oh, you can't talk to him. No, because you was on your phone. Y'all was sitting right at the same family reunion table, and you was too busy on your phone doing whatever.
That's like, and I did to that point too. It's like when I used to go to bike week all the time, right? And it used to really irk me. People would take pictures and be posting pictures. Oh, I'm here. I'm da da da. Like, if you're having that much fun, you don't have time to be on your phone.
There's been a whole lot of times where I've been somewhere and I was like, I didn't get any pictures. Because I was having so much fun. Right. I didn't have time to pick up my phone. I remember one time we were somewhere, and matter of fact, it was our wedding. And it was like, you know how you got people doing that now. They wedding receptions. I did not have my phone in my hand during the reception or anything else. I think the battery died and everything else because I wasn't even trying to charge it. Nothing. It was just like, whatever. So that's really important. You got to let the haters know, right? No, let the haters know you with your imaginary date and everything else.
Listen, yeah, it ain't nothing. Let me tell you something. If you thinking about a hater while you having fun somewhere, then you got other problems, in my opinion. Because I'm not.
Most of the people are the ones that don't have haters.
Yeah, exactly. Because I can tell you a couple times that she and I went out somewhere and we had a ball. I've never been the one to post pictures and take pictures like that anyway. But my phone and taking pictures was the furthest thing from my damn memory. I mean, thought process. I don't care about no haters. I stun on them by being happy. That's how I try to stun on them. But I mean, I get it. But I just think that it's sort of like they say, the loudest person in the room is the weakest. And if, to me, you're not having as much, that I correlate that with you're not having as much fun as you say you are when you just.
No, if you got time to take them type of pictures, you're not having that type of fun.
In my opinion.
There's just no time for it. You just too busy running from one person to the next, talking and everything else. But so anyway, take time to listen carefully. We'll hurry up because we almost done. Number 2 was give your partner the opportunity to express himself. When you're listening intently, don't try to anticipate what your spouse is going to say.
I'm guilty of that a lot.
Yeah, he does it all the time.
I don't know about it all the time.
Wait patiently, let them say what they need to say.
No, I'm about to cut off. See how I say I admit to something. I say I'm guilty of that. Sometimes, And what did she have to say? She got to be extreme. He do that all the time. Anyway, back.
That it's that half accountability stuff, though, but whatever. Um, Cutting someone off or acting like you're rushing him to get to your point will only frustrate him and make him shut down, which is true. And I think it's equally rude though for when a person we got this strange way people do when we don't want to hear something, we start half responding and I don't think that's any better than cutting someone off, to be honest. um I think is rude. It makes a person feel like, oh well, they need to shut up. um and I just don't think
you need to shut up.
I just don't think it's necessary. I think it's rude. I think especially when you're doing this as one that you supposedly love, that's not the way to go about communicating. It's easy. You could easily say to them like, okay, well, after they express their point, I'm again not interrupting them, but just say, okay, well, it doesn't seem like we're gonna get anywhere with this discussion or blah blah blah. But to just start giving them like these short answers and half responding and stuff to let them know to shut up is like probably one of the rudest things you can do.
So you calling me rude?
And it's disrespectful.
So you calling me disrespectful?
I'm just saying it is.
Well, I do that a lot too.
It is. And the thing is, the other thing too, when they're talking about give your partner opportunity to express yourself. Some people, look, I have this friend, and a lot of people do this. I have this friend that I can call him about an issue that I'm having, and I need to talk to someone. But I'll open my mouth. He'll give me an example of maybe how he's familiar with that issue, right? Which is fine. But then he manipulates the whole dang on conversation. And then after he's done talking about himself, be like, okay, well, time for me to go. Get off the phone. And it's funny because I was just having this conversation with my son. My son was here over the weekend from college, and I was telling him how people do that. And I was telling him how I don't know if people even understand the impact that they're having on someone when they do that. How and my son was like, yeah, he said he walks a thin. It's hard for him to balance when he should give a person an example because he's went through something and he wants them to understand that he gets what they're going through. And I was telling him like, there's nothing wrong with that. The issue becomes when you give them that example to demonstrate to them like, hey, I know what you're talking about, but then you just keep going and going and going. And not only just that, but then you keep going, then you act like you don't have time to finish hearing what they were saying. That's crazy to me. Like, I don't get that. Like, in a lot, people do that a lot. And I don't know if they are aware that they're doing it, or if again they just so self-absorbed that they don't realize it.
I think because I've done that before too.
He's done it a lot.
No, I ain't done it to you, so hush.
Yes, you have.
I have not. But anyway, have. Maybe I have.
I've told him, and I've told. This is not the first time I told him that. I've told him that several times that he's done to me.
But here's the thing with that, right? And I think what happens. So because I've done it, I think what happens is this: you I don't know if it's being, I guess you can consider that self-absorbed. But when you hear someone that's, you could be wanting to get this off your chest for God knows how long, and then when somebody calls you with the same problem, and it's like, oh my God, yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about. So this is how it happened. And then it happened to me like this, that, and the third. And yeah, I did this and blah, 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 blah. So I done told you everything you probably didn't told was going to say to me or similar. And then you have somewhere to go or you tired of being on the phone.
He does. Let me tell you, he does that so much to his cousin. It's ridiculous. Like one time his cousin even said like, hey, bro, I wasn't even done talking to you. And I'm like, yeah, I said, man, I said, you literally just like getting off the phone with him. He the one called you. Like he called you for a reason. And you just start talking. And it was just like, okay, well, I got to go now. And I was just like, no, he didn't just do that.
Yeah. I'm definitely guilty of that.
What y'all think about my communication issue? She has an issue with something I did. I want to talk about it right then, not in the morning, because tomorrow's a new day and I don't want to talk about it now because it's in the past. I agree with you. And that's what I always say. Like, you're supposed to resolve. I think he talks about that too.
It was in another chapter.
It might be another chapter, but you don't sit there and if there's an issue, you address it in the moment that the issue arises, right? Now it's not to say that you're going to get to a resolution then, and you may have to say, okay, Well, we discussed it. We talked about it. I heard what you said. You heard what I said. Let's reconvene tomorrow. But you don't just say have an issue with something and say I don't want to talk about it though. Let's just wait and talk about it later. That's the no. That's not how you communicate effectively at all. He probably disagrees, but that's just not how you
Well,
communicate.
I'll say this. I know I agree. I just think that so with me, uh, if it's a if it's an issue that we're having, and I know that we're not gonna see eye to eye or eye to eye on it, I'll talk about it, but I'm not gonna keep going around in a circle about it because if I tell you that that dress is black and you think it's like we talk about the car, she says black, I say it's gray. Why am I gonna keep on having that discussion? And I think it's black and you think it's gray, or you think it's black and I think it's gray. So it's I'll speak on it and then I'll say whatever I have to say, and then I don't have anything. It goes back to what she said. That's when I start doing the short answers or whatever, because at the end of the day, I realize that we're not going to see eye to eye. Now, if it's something with an argument and where we didn't have an argument, she likes to try to resolve it. I'm more of I'll talk about it later, or give me some time. Well, I used to be, it'd take me a day or two to get over something. I started learning that wasn't the best, most effective way, because that's how I've been doing my whole life, to communicate. So now, you know, it take me about used to take me about 4 hours. I'm on 4 hours is my maximum. We talked about it, and maybe a little bit too long for her, so I'll try to cut it down to an hour or two, depending on what it is. Mm-hmm. But and the reason I do that is because, going back to one of the titles in here, words matter. And when you're in a heated moment and a bad situation or a bad argument or something, no one should be saying anything to one another that's going to hurt their feelings and stuff like that. And with me and my temper, sometimes it takes me that long to calm down, because I've gotten to a place now that I don't ever want to say anything to her to intentionally or unintentionally hurt her feelings, and I don't want to say anything that I know that no matter how much I apologize, it's still going to sit there, because some things you can say that hurt so bad, and you can apologize to the most sincerest way that you know how, and they can accept your apology, but it's still there. So
here's the thing, though. I think it's rude to give to not talk to someone about an issue that they have right away. And it's rude to start giving them short answers, and it is rude to there's ways around things that are compromises for both parties, right? Because it doesn't have to be all one way or all one another way. But for some reason, we don't want to give that same consideration. If you go and play a game of spades, most of the time people lay down what the rules are, because people play spades differently. If you in a boxing match, the referee comes in there and tell you what the rules are. Hey, these are rules. Because I don't understand why people can't do that when they're communicating with each other. You're going to communicate about different things. One thing may make somebody angry. One thing may not. It may be blah, blah. But you can always, even in the midst of that communication, say, okay, hey, look, I don't think this is getting anywhere right now. It doesn't seem like we're able to get to the same thing, as opposed to just start getting short with somebody, or saying I ain't gonna talk to you. You could say, I don't think this is getting where we're getting on the same page with this. Feel like we're going around in a circle. How can we go and think about it, and then talk about it again tomorrow. Try to bring it up. Or, hey, how about we only dedicate? It's taking up all this time. I don't think we're getting anywhere with this. Do you mind if we can't resolve it in 20 minutes? We decide that we'll just let it go. It's ways to communicate stuff like that to people without just being dang on rude and disrespectful. Like, I don't understand why people feel like they have to. The alternative is to be rude, or the alternative is to be disrespectful, or the alternative is to do things how they want to do it. Like, you don't get to determine when you're not going to have a conversation with someone. It's independently. Not if you're in a relationship. It doesn't operate like that, or you don't get to decide when you want to be tired of a conversation with someone. You just don't. Not unilaterally. None of that happens when
Yes,
you
you
become
do.
involved with
It's
someone.
because I'm the man, and the man has the last say so because I have to protect and provide.
I'm just saying, like, you just don't do those things unilaterally. So, like, if someone has an issue with talking about things right away, and they rather wait, and someone else has an issue with putting things off, then there's always some type of workable compromise. Okay, well, we going I don't, I like put things off, but let's give it 2 minutes tonight, and if we can't, get to resolution, then we gonna table it to tomorrow. Or okay, we can talk about it now, but the minute things start getting heated and we start arguing with each other, we gonna table it
So
until blah blah blah. I mean, there's all kind of ways to work
yeah. So
around
the
that
key
type
with
of stuff.
the key with that is compromising, right? And you hit that right on the head, baby. Because here's the thing. So to make a long story short, you want to talk about it right now. She don't want to talk about it right now. She want to wait till tomorrow, right? So obviously she ain't gonna do it your way, and you don't want to do it her way. So the only other thing is two options in that situation. Y'all leave each other alone forever, or you come up with a compromise. I mean, the third option is you keep going that way, and it's just gonna make the relationship a living hell sooner or later. But
Mm.
so that's the only legitimate answer is to compromise. The happy medium is where you have to find. Well, because if you want to talk about it right now, she want to talk about it tomorrow. Um, Neither one of y'all gonna get what you want unless you come to the happy medium. So if you want to talk about it now, well, is it gonna hurt you to talk about it 3 hours later? Is it gonna hurt her to talk about it 3 hours later? No. So you meet in the middle.
Yeah,
You try to meet in the middle.
because compromise is all about taking two separate ideas or thoughts and combining them, not going all one way or all the other way. It's about a combination of the two options that you have.
I
Uh,
don't compromise everything my way around this mother. She don't listen to me. She get the Ike Turner hand.
See that you don't do that. It's domestic
Oh, I'm
violence.
sorry.
Oh my god,
No, I'm saying
you're
I'll
gonna get
cut Ike
canceled.
Turner hand off and then
Mhm.
give it to her to go take
That's
it
how
to
you know
the shelters.
when we on here too long, because then he just starts saying anything. So let me hurry up. Number 3 was check your body language. This cannot be stressed enough. Be mindful of your facial expressions and your posture. That's very true. Number 4 is
I'll stop right there
okay.
because I was gonna say I disagree with that, and when I read that, I said I disagree with that. But uh, in the discussion that we had downstairs, I seen my body language change, or I felt my body language change, and I was like, "Oh crap!" Like that's exactly what they just said. So yeah, your body language could tell a lot about how you feel too. I mean, how you feeling, and damn, it can be disrespectful. Mine
Yeah,
wasn't, but I'm just saying.
it can be, because even when you refuse to look at your spouse and everything else, that's some people consider that disrespectful. Not like they commanding that they are any type of authority or anything like that. But if you, how can you tell someone and prove to someone that you paying attention to them if you looking away from them or looking at the TV or doing got your back to them because you don't want to face all that kind of just stuff. That's not appropriate. He says, don't try and fix things. And then he said, this is one that's mostly for men. Sometimes women just want to talk. They want to tell you about their situation and what happened with them, not so you can fix it, but so they can feel connected to you. Coming up with a solution can frustrate wives because they can fix their problems. They just want you to sit tight and go along for the ride. So again, that's another issue that a lot of people have. They want to jump in and start giving their ideas on how to resolve something and how to do it and how to go about this. And the person wasn't asking all that. All they wanted to do was talk. They wanted somebody to vent to. But then again, that's another way of when you start jumping in to fix something, then the conversation switches to mostly about you. Yeah, you would do something, and it leaves the person that was talking. I mean, it does leave the person that was talking feeling like they didn't even get a chance to express to you everything they wanted to express.
Yo, they should be quick. You should beat me there, not meet me there.
Watch what you say. So it says, when I say watch what you say, I'm not talking about language, although that can be a part of it. I mean, be careful with the words that you use. Be careful that you are not attacking or calling names. Make sure that you're not talking in a way that is demeaning or disrespectful. A surefire way to kill communication is to make someone feel that she has been disrespected. And I don't know. I think a lot of people have an issue with how they how they communicate with people and what they say and how they say it. Because sometimes they'll say things and it's really offensive, but I don't understand why they don't. I guess because we all raised differently, but sometimes they don't get that what they said was offensive. And it's kind of like, okay, do you know that really to this person, what you're saying, what you're doing is you're calling them a big dummy, or you're saying that they're a big dummy, but you said it in a way that I guess you maybe didn't think was offensive. But people have a habit of doing things or saying in a way or talking down to a person or speaking to them in a way that makes them feel like you're disrespecting them or you demeaning them or you not recognizing, their intelligence and you're insulting their intelligence and different things like that. So you have to definitely watch what you say. And number 6 is say what you mean to say. Need to be expressed. Don't limit yourself and think you are keeping some things to yourself for the good of the relationship. That never works because people will sit there and they won't say things and they'll say, well, I'm saving us an argument by not bringing it up. But then that's the thing. What happens is that when it gets to be too much or when something else comes along, then they throw it up in the person's face. Yep. Oh, back 2 months ago when you said this and that, this is how I felt. And now you didn't really cause a big problem because the person didn't even know that you even had that issue because you didn't never said that. Now they do, especially when like this is the thing. Like when we have our touch bases, I specifically asked Jermaine, he has anything he wants to touch base about. And he always claimed that he doesn't have much touch base about, blah, 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 blah. So then my expectation is that if we get into the argument, you ain't got nothing to say about nothing that happened any other time because you keep telling me every time we have these touch bases that you ain't got nothing to say. So don't come to me when you mad about something or when we in a debate about something or a heated argument and all of a sudden you want to bring up stuff from 10,000 BC because your butt wouldn't bring it up in the touch bases.
Your ass wouldn't be so old I could bring it up that long.
And that's what I'm saying. Like you just can't do that. You have to say what you mean to say. There's ways to say even things that you think that are going to be hurtful in a way that's respectful. But it's important to say what needs to be said because that's the only way a person can grow. That's the only way a person can change. That's the only way a person can do better. That's the only way a lot of people if they're not aware, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes the only way you know that is when someone communicates it to you. So it's strange how people won't say things that are on their mind, but then expect their partner to be able to change and adapt to the things that they didn't say to them. And that's not being fair to your partner. And then if you love them, you should want your partner to grow and be the best version of themselves that they can be. So I would think that you would want to say things to them.
Well, guess what? I ain't growing no more.
That was number 6. I don't think there was a number. No, there was a number 7. But again, he ends with the communication is essential to the life of any relationship. When you take your time and become deliberate about how you express yourself with communication, you can open the possibilities for sharing and caring in ways that you did not deem possible. Communication, when it goes well, can fuel a marriage or a partnership. And that is very true. So those are just some of the things that he discussed in this chapter. I think it was a very enlightening chapter. Communication, flexibility, one of those things that you can always practice on, you can always become better at. I know people, I've taken, when I was doing diversity training and when I was working with even when I was working with like women who had been abused and I was working with at-risk youth, I had to go through a series of trainings, like in-depth trainings about communication and how to effectively communicate with people, right? I remember one particular training was it was 3-4 days. We had to go somewhere. We was in these cabins or whatever. And the whole training focused on conflict resolution, communicating with people, effectively communicating, blah, 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 blah. And even I still struggle with effectively communicating with someone. So if a person hasn't even gone through those things, I don't know how they can expect to think that they don't need to continually work on, practice their communication skills. Because you do. It's just something that you have to do. It's lifelong. And you have to do it for a very long time. I mean, you have to practice that throughout your entire life. So, but that was it. That was the chapter. The next chapters are about. The next chapters are about. Let's see. Becoming better at dealing with conflict. And what's the next one? We only have like 3 more chapters.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to finish it this week.
That's what he always says, but he never gets it done then.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
So it's number 9 is becoming better at dealing with conflict, right? And then we go into 10, becoming more forgiving, letting go for the good.
And
the last one is becoming sexual. So I'm pretty sure Jermaine's gonna have a lot to say about that.
Booty hole.
See, that's why we need to go. See, it's past his bedtime. All right, so we gone.
Pink and brown.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.